Are you enjoying the channel Stories That Connect? Then click follow. This helps our channel reach people who need to enrich themselves spiritually and financially. Leave your like and comment on what you need to improve in your life. Today, we will talk about the awareness of being loved. Thus, I can only imagine mediating God lovingly to appear in, upon, and as harmonious relationships. That's what I would like to discuss with you today, from a personal experience, in a way that I believe will be beneficial for you. I titled today's video as Changing the Feeling of I to Being as I Am, inspired by what Neville once said, that imagination is the redeeming power of the world, and that you are mediating God to the individual. I also realize that it is information, circumstances, environment, etc., used in a loving and wonderful way. The true nature is love. There is no denying that we were created in the perfect image of the Creator. The true nature is love. Thus, it is only illusions in the mind that generate the appearances of non-love. We can say that illusions appear only to disappear. What remains eternally is God as love, the true nature created in the perfect image of the Creator. So what do I imagine appearing as relationships? Romantic relationships, personal relationships, family relationships, business relationships. If it is not from the principle of truth, knowing that I am love, I release that identification from that untrue imaginary activity. I like how Ram Maharshi once said, "The solution to your problem is to see who has it." Very precise. The solution to your problem is to see who has it. The problem is an illusion of the self. I am aware of what I imagine. I release the identification from the illusions of the self, and they disappear. Illusions appear only to disappear, and what remains eternally is God as love, the true nature created in the perfect image of the Creator. As I am transcended to appearances, I can remain as I am, and thus only witness God in, upon, and as the external appearances of God. I and the Father are one, but the Father is greater than I. And to what extent is my Father greater than I? Well, I can witness the greatness appearing more and more at each moment, with increasing frequency and continuity. This is what he is referring to here. Imagination is the redeeming power of the world. There is only God, and only God appearing, and only God animating everything that seems to appear through the eye. The single eye of God. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. You are already pure in heart. Accept this eternal fact now to persistently and effortlessly witness life through the single eye of God, to reveal God everywhere. Now, when we talk about the feeling of I, as he says here very precisely, when I speak of feeling, I do not refer to emotion, but to the acceptance of the fact that it is fulfilled. The fact is love. I am love. Be still in the presence of God, and know that I am love. God is love. To imagine otherwise would be to reveal identification, as Ram Maharshi said again. The solution to your problem is to see who has it. Who has it? Only I seem to have it. Is it true? It is an illusion of the self, for I know that I am love. So how do we change the feelings of the self, or release the identification with the illusions of the self? Consider this. As Neville shared in his lecture on changing the feeling of the self, he said that the self has no face, form, or figure, but it shapes itself into structure by everything it consents to, everything it believes. You can imagine anything, anything. However, if the individual identifies with their imaginative activity that is not from the principle of truth, knowing that I am love, they say, I have a problem. There is no problem for the witness of the individual who seems to have a problem. Unconditional observation, as in, I am unconditionally loving, lovingly blessed. Then it becomes clear. I am aware of what I relate to appearances, and it is false if it is not from the principle of love. So, we may have no idea of the countless superstitions and prejudices that shape this formless inner self, projecting it as our environment and life conditions. In fact, life has no conditions. I am beyond conditions. I may generate conditions based on insecurity, but they do not come from the principle of truth. By being silent in the presence of God, I know I am unconditional love. Thus, I meditate God into people, the environment, circumstances, information, personal relationships, business relationships, and friendships. Let's discuss friendships and business relationships as examples. It is crystal clear that, by being conscious of what I imagine, it becomes clear to be attentive to the inner speech regarding friendships and business. Partnerships, suppliers, clients, employees, if they do not come from the principle of truth, I release those identifications by lovingly imagining, thus mediating God to them. As a result, these superstitions and prejudices disappear, as I mentioned earlier. Illusions only appear to disappear. What remains eternally is God as love, happiness, peace, bliss, and fulfillment. For example, if someone says, "I can't make friends because I'm not interesting enough," this is clearly not true. The person is using the Lord's name in vain. I am is the name of the Lord, the consciousness of being, that is God. Exodus 3:14 says, "And God said to Moses, I am who I am. Thus you shall say to the children of Israel, I am has sent me to you." I am aware of what I imagine, so this would be using the Lord's name in vain. If someone says, "I can't make friends because I'm not interesting enough," it suggests there is a separation in I am. There is no such thing as separation in the fundamental reality. It can only seem so through identification with the illusions of the self. We change the feeling of the self to, I am in a wonderful and harmonious relationship with people wherever I appear. If someone says, I can't find friends who understand me because I'm too different, I only seem different, but I am not. There is only God, the fundamental reality. I am from where each individual arises. We are the same, although we may seem different based on what we imagine. So it is false to say that I can't find friends who understand me. Understanding is God. There is only God, God appearing and animating everything that appears as God. To imagine otherwise would be to reveal an identification with an untrue imaginative activity, and there is no shame or condemnation in that. As Ram Maharshi said, the solution to your problem is to see who has it. If it is an illusion of the self, by being aware of what I imagine, I release the identification with the illusion, and it disappears. These are examples of imaginative activities with which I used to identify, and that I know are clearly false. By being aware of what I imagine, by releasing these false illusions of the self, friends started to appear. People began to appear always wanting to spend time with me, always wanting to do things with me. There was a time when it seemed that people didn't want to be around me, which was a result of identifying with an illusion of the self. As I released this identification, these illusions of the self disappeared, and relationships began to appear from the principle of truth. Thus, I was mediating God to them. Before that, I was generating these illusions of separation between them and me. The I am cannot be divided. To think otherwise is an illusion. The fundamental reality is wholeness and completeness. Therefore, I am love. When someone says, I can't find friends who understand me because I'm too different, that is an illusion. People who seem different are merely different emanations of God, celebrating their experiences in unique ways. For example, you may have a friend interested in discussing topic A and another friend interested in topic B. Sometimes you are with friend A, other times with friend B. Both understand that you are love and you understand that they represent love. The fundamental reality from which we all arise is love, which is God. Another example. I don't feel comfortable in social situations because I'm too awkward. We can release this identification by remembering Romans 12:2. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will. God's will is love. It is an illusion to imagine otherwise. We were created in the perfect image of the Creator, and the fundamental reality from which we both arise is love, is God. There is no separation. It is an illusion to imagine discomfort with others. Release this identification. The self has no face, form, or figure, but shapes itself into structure by everything it consents to. I consent to love, believe in love, and beyond belief, I know that I am love. And as you arise from the same source, you are also love. To imagine otherwise would be illusory. By bringing awareness to these untrue imaginative acts, the identification is released. Let's look at a few more examples in business relationships. If someone says, "I can't network effectively because I'm not confident," the thought of lack of confidence is an illusion of the self. I am in a harmonious relationship with people wherever I appear, accepting the truth that I am love. I can only mediate God to them, and thus they are mediating God to me. I relate to them ideally, recognizing that our communication flows authentically. We can call this unconditional confidence, without judgment, without shame, without condemnation, simply, I am. This is what I mean by changing the feeling of I to be as I am love. Imagine lovingly, for imagination is the redeeming power of the world, and you are mediating God to others by using it in a loving and wonderful way. As these identifications, or illusions of the self, are released, you will notice that you automatically mediate God to them. You will operate from the single I, and can only imagine lovingly. This has been my experience over the years, and working with people who have applied this specifically, as described here. Choosing to imagine lovingly releases the identifications with the untrue illusions of the self, mediating God to others. Another example is when someone suggests to themselves or identifies with the false idea that I can't negotiate deals because I'm not persuasive. There is no need to persuade. By being who you are, communication flows authentically. In a harmonious relationship, everything fits together. Another thought is, I can't gain respect because I don't have enough experience. The fundamental reality from which everyone arises is unconditional love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, and prosperity. Therefore, I have everything, just as you have everything. I and the Father are one, but the Father is greater than I. And to what extent is the Father greater than I? I can allow greatness to manifest more and more at every moment, with increasing frequency and continuously. This is what it means to say, I and the Father are one, but the Father is greater than I. To imagine otherwise would, again, be an identification with an illusion of the self. God manifests as wonderful life experiences, meaningful conversations, and synchronicities. Everything happens ideally and automatically from the principle of truth. Respect is unconditional because there is no true separation. I am cannot be divided. To say I need respect is an illusion. I am unconditional love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, and prosperity. So in the journey of manifesting visions, opportunities may arise not to shame or condemn, but to reveal the illusions of the self so that I can release them, being who I am. Imagining lovingly, I release the illusions of the self. By being still and knowing that I am, I automatically witness loving imaginative activities in relation to people, environments, circumstances, and information. As I am aware of what I imagine, it is wonderful that Ramana Maharshi simplified it. The solution to your problem is to see who has it. Only I seem to have the problem. I am aware of what I imagine and know that I am love. If I imagine unlovingly, it is an illusion of the self, and I release these illusions of the self. I change the feelings of the self to be who I am. I hope this reflection is helpful to you. Let's conclude with a self-suggestion to encourage you further. I am aware of what I imagine. I realize that the true nature is love. As a result, I imagine lovingly people, environments, circumstances, and information, mediating God to appear in and as the external appearances of God. Only God is real. God is love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, and prosperity. Everything else is an illusion of the self. I release the illusions of the self to be who I am, witnessing God wherever I appear.